Hello, welcome to today's video. Today's video is for professionals who are team leaders. You may be a very good team leader already, but if you want to become even a better one, this video can help. Please do watch this till the end. Today I'm going to share a tool named MODI. And no, it does not refer to our revered PM Modi ji. Our Modi ji is definitely a great team leader and we all can learn a thing or two from him. But today I'm not going to talk about Modi ji. I'm going to talk about the tool MODI. It stands for motivation, organization, direction, and inculcation of skills and confidence. Let's jump into it. I'm going to share an experience from the time when I had newly become a team leader. I sent an email to a team member to share something with me in few days time. So I followed up with the person after 2 days of sending him the instruction and realized that he had not even understood the requirement. And I wondered what went wrong. Why didn't he come back and ask me for clarification? And then I had a supervisor training where I realized my mistake. So I'm going to share the lesson learned from that training with you today. So let's look at D in MODI. D stands for direction. As team leaders, we issue directions to our team members all the time. Sometimes team members get the directions loud and clear, and sometimes don't. So let's discuss some of the key challenges that team members face when they receive directions from their team leaders. Team members receive directions through emails and sometimes through WhatsApp messages and other chats. Two-line messages are not enough for communicating clear direction. Team leaders who are more experienced, who have been around in the industry and the company for a longer time, they tend to use buzzwords, jargons, acronyms in their messaging. Sometimes the team members get those, and some team members who may be not that experienced, who are young in the industry or the company, they may not follow those jargons, keywords, buzzwords, and that leads to confusion. If you pick up a phone as a leader and try to communicate, that will help, definitely help. But is that enough? In my experience, not. So what can you do? I recommend the following. Communicate as clearly as possible using as many means as possible. I recommend, from my experience, communicating the same direction to the same people at least 3 times. Once by phone or in person, second time by email, and then follow up in a couple of days to see if the directions were understood. The second thing you can do is, when you're communicating, to communicate in as plain language as possible. Avoid using any jargons or buzzwords or acronyms that may not be clear to your junior employees. Follow up after you've given the directions to ensure that your directions have been understood, and that will ensure that you are communicating directions clearly to your team members and your team members are receiving the directions loud and clear. Let's talk about yet another issue when we issue directions and don't see the productivity from our team members. Has it happened to you that you may have given a direction and the person has understood the direction, but the person comes back saying they are unable following up on your request? From my experience, I have found 2 root causes of this. Is because their inability due to not having the skills, or if they have the skills, they are not confident enough to use those skills. So I will share with you 2 examples around that. Example 1 is about my time as a supervisor of analysts. I had requested a report involving working with pivot tables to one of the analysts. That analyst came back after a day or 2 saying that he didn't know how to use pivot tables. Clearly, that was an issue with his skills. So in example 2, I had requested a warehouse supervisor who was reporting to me to document the current processes of the warehouse. She definitely had the skills to document in a Word doc. Also, she had been a warehouse supervisor for a long time, so she was definitely aware of the processes, but she lacked the confidence to document the processes correctly. And this lack of confidence prohibited her from proceeding forward. So how do you deal with such a situation? Your first step should be, when you realize that it is either a lack of skill or lack of confidence, you have to be very sure of what the case is. In case it is a lack of skills, what you want to do is inculcate the skills in the employee. That's very simple. You put that person through a training or you coach yourself. In case it's a problem of lack of confidence, I recommend breaking down your directions in smaller steps and do some hand holding so that you can help boost the morale and confidence of the employee. Once they have the confidence that they could do this task themselves, then you can leave it up to them to complete it. But until then, you have to be by their side to boost their confidence. And that covers I in MODI. I stands for inculcation of skills and confidence. We have covered D and I. D for direction, I for inculcation of skills and confidence. Now we'll cover M next. Let's discuss a situation where your directions are clear and you're sure your employee had the required skills and the confidence to complete the task. Yet the employee is not showing the urgency to complete the task. I will share with you an example. I was a contracting manager on a project and I had a contracting lead who was an employee of a contractor of ours, and she was in my team working under my directions. I had instructed her to tweak the contracting process a little to match our company processes. But even after a week or two, she had not followed up on my request. I had to meet with her one-on-one to understand the reason behind that. When I met her, I realized that she had not made the change because the process they followed in her company, that's the contractor company, was different than ours, and she didn't want to deviate from her current process, fearing that she may get into trouble if she had made a change. So that was the reason for her lack of motivation to comply with my request. So how do you deal with lack of motivation? Once you're sure that your directions are well understood and the employee has the skills and capabilities and the confidence to complete the request, and it's the lack of motivation on his or her part that's stopping him or her from being productive, I recommend you sit down with the person. You get to know the person a little better. Try to understand the fears behind his or her actions. Try to understand what motivates the person and gets the person excited. Once you know your team member a little better, you would be able to help him or her motivate and feel incentivized in being productive. Once I realized that my contracting lead feared losing her job and that was stopping her from being productive, what I did is I went to her manager in her company and explained to him the requirement I had. I got him to approve those changes and requested him to communicate his approval to my contracting lead. Once the contracting lead had the blessing of her boss, she was happy to make those changes. Hence the issue was. So now we have covered D for direction, I for inculcation of skills and confidence, M for motivation. Now we are going to talk about O for organization in the acronym MODI. So have you had a situation where you're sure the directions are clear, the team member has the incentive to perform as well as has the skills and the confidence to deliver, but yet there is something that's stopping him or her from delivering on your request? So let me share an example. When I was head of procurement department for a hospital, I had a audit finding. In that audit finding, the auditor had found a couple of expired items in our store. Replenishing the items and removing the expired items was procurement department's responsibility. So I went to my person who was responsible for replenishing the store with items to ensure and check every time he was in the store to ensure that there were no expired items. I followed up on that request a couple of weeks later and did a random check in the store and found an expired item. A month later, I did another random check and I found another expired item in the store. I wasn't sure what was I missing. I had clearly given the instructions. It was not lack of capability or confidence. Neither was the case of lack of motivation. So I was baffled. In order to understand the issue better, I shadowed the person who was responsible for replenishing the store and checking for expired items. I found he was replenishing the items on top of the remaining items in the bin, and the nurses were picking the items always from the top of the bin, leaving the old items sitting at the bottom of the bin. The old items would eventually expire, and that was the root cause of the problem. Checking each and every item in the bin every day was not physically possible. So we changed the process. We introduced a new two-bin process through which we were able to put the new replenished items at the back of the store, and nurses always picked the older items first, and this helped the situation a lot, and this resolved the issue. The point here is that there are sometimes organizational issues that stop the employee from being productive. Once you have ensured that there is not an issue of direction or an issue with either the motivation or capability or confidence of the team member, then you have to start looking into organizational issues like process, equipment, leadership, and other factors related to organizations that may be stopping the team member from being productive. So O stands for organization in MODI. Let's summarize. MODI. M stands for motivation, O for organization, D for direction, and I for inculcation of skills and confidence. When you have any productivity issues, you feel that your team member is not being productive, always start with D. Check your own directions to your team member. Are you communicating the directions clearly? Is the employee receiving your direction loud and clear? Then once you are sure that direction is clear, go to I. Check if you need to inculcate new skills and confidence in your team member. Once you have done that, then see if there is an issue with the motivation of the employee. What can you do to up the motivation of the employee? Once you are sure that it is not an issue of direction or skills and confidence or motivation, then check for organizational issues. Does a process need to be changed? Does the team member have all the required tools and equipment to be productive? Check for organizational issues. With all the steps that are mentioned in MODI, I assure you that you can troubleshoot any productivities in your team in no time. If you use MODI, you will be perceived as a leader who knows how to overcome challenges and as a leader who cares for his people. Thanks for watching this video. Please do comment your experiences with team productivity issues, and if you used MODI, how did it go for you? If you like watching such videos, please do like and subscribe. For my latest videos, please refer here. Thank you and Jai Hind.